Thank you, Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs. Our next.
I would like to start by sharing this African proverb which says, examine what is said, not who is speaking. I heard the Honorable Minister earlier, Mr. Indar, claims of misinformation, racial undertone, tension, and all of these. And then I heard the Honorable come and give a similar sentiment. Mr. Speaker, if you speak on something, an issue that needs to be dealt with, I don't know how you can use that as political undertone. We have an issue, we have to deal with it. If it is not seen as an issue, it will never be dealt with. And that is something that needs to be looked at. Mr. Speaker, as I stand to give my contribution to this national budget review, in my mind, budget ought to give hope and give the populace a pathway to improve their standards of living. Mr. Speaker, as I peruse this budget and reflect over the past 6 months, I recognize injustice. I recognize dismissal and displacement of innocent Guyanese workers and the inequitable distribution of the COVID grant relief carried out by the honorable members on that side of the House. I wondered, Mr. Speaker, I wondered, how does this budget bring hope and give the pathway to an improved standard of living? Or, as the budget suggests, how does this budget bring oneness or togetherness? Mr. Speaker, I examined the first objective of the budget and stated on page 4, paragraph 1.14, it says it's going to be navigating COVID-19 as long as it is around while the economy progressively opens. Guyanese in the world have seen the navigation tool currently being used by the PPPC regime. The distribution of grant relief is plagued with discrimination and injustices. Mr. Speaker, this is one evidence. Distribution of grant, the police with large guns, walking around the community with a group of PPPC activists to distribute this money to selected households. I, as a representative of Region 4, would have tracked the distribution of COVID relief from Suicide Highway to Mary straight to Echo. I've tracked it. The children in the community, they were terrorized just seeing the police walking into the communities with guns. I don't think no sensitization was done to let the children be aware that this is the method that will be used. I don't even think the citizens were aware that this is the method that will be used. We are navigating, but we're terrorizing at the same time because I am quite sure the children were wondering why. Why is it the police in our yard with a gun to share this COVID relief? This is one of the navigating tools used by the PPPC. Mr. Speaker, I would also like to let you know, Mr. Speaker, that this discriminatory practice caused many to be distressed. Not only are many Guyanese denied the right to access the COVID relief through the PPPC method of distribution, but also the quantity of the money distributed would have caused distress to several Guyanese. Mr. Speaker, I can recall visiting Grove, 2nd Street Grove, where I met a pregnant mother, full term, complained bitterly of being deprived of receiving the grant because, according to the leader of that group, she was an intruder to the community. And that remark was made because she was of a different ethnic group. That is discrimination. Mr. Speaker, it was sad for me as a legislator in this House to stand and see a mother cried for $25,000. $25,000, Mr. Speaker. If a family of 3, 25,000 will get them some groceries, some personal care items. If they have a child, they might be able to pay for the internet and get some photocopies done, but it basically be valid for a week. Mr. Speaker, as against, if they were given a sum of 100,000, we talk about relief, a relief ought to bring hope to people or help the person to be sure up until a period of time, until they can stand on their own and do something. Mr. Speaker, I am saddened. I was really saddened to witness that. Mr. Speaker, when the grant reached to Region 4, then is when we recognize how much of the criteria was necessary. I have traveled to several communities observing the process. Mr. Speaker, if we're talking about creating a one Guyana, this is something that will be the perfect place to begin by first doing your distribution in a fair and transparent manner. Imagine, it's not only people of African ethnicity who are deprived, people of East Indian ethnicity were deprived. Why? Because the leader of the group told whoever is sharing, don't get them. They're APNU, AFC. Now, you having to deal with that on a regular basis speaks so much to this discriminatory practice of bypassing people. It is also in friendship, Mr. Speaker, another incident I would like to share with you. The people were given the money on December 28th, I think we were sitting here. I got a call. The next day, a grand lot of police officers with the team leader turned up at the residence house in Friendship Squatting area to collect back the money. What do we say to that? Demanding that the money must be returned. Shame. Shame on you. Mr. Speaker, we continue to tread in dangerous times with the COVID-19. We address the curfew, Mr. Speaker. We have a curfew that speaks from 22:30 hours to 4. The time they don't usually operate, is it effective? How many persons are out there doing business at that hour? Mr. Speaker, I would believe that the curfew for COVID-19 is to help stop the spread of the virus. That's my understanding. And therefore, an ineffective curfew doesn't tell the population anything. Only 2 nights ago, I spoke with some young people and asked, what was the curfew time in Guyana? You know what the young people said? There is no curfew. You could drive as you like, walk as you like, and do as you like. That's the message given. Mr. Speaker, this is just an example or sample of the grand navigation scheme presented by the PPPC and still results. Imagine this scheme that they're currently using still results in the CDC issuing an alert that COVID-19 in Guyana is at level 4, very high, and it says do not travel. The U.S. Embassy in Guyana alerts and messages level 3, reconsider travel to Guyana due to COVID-19. And they tell you to exercise care and caution and so forth, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to remind this Honorable House that inaccurate information could only be accepted by those who have lack of access to information. It cannot affect anybody else. And the people can go and check. Even on the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office give an advisory, the whole of Guyana, based on the current assessment of COVID risk, should avoid travel only essential travel recommended. Mr. Speaker, the government presented this grant scheme, a pathway to recovery, economic dynamism, and resilience. This theme raises many questions. It sounds good, sounds beautiful. Questions are that, what path will be taken to recover from injustice? What path will be taken to recover from the inequalities? And what path will be taken to recover from this pandemic? When we talk about dynamism, for whom? Are we speaking about unemployed Guyanese and no increases for the public servants? Resilience against what? Marginalization, unfair distribution of wealth. These are just questions that come to one mind when we read about this budget. Mr. Speaker, I was faced with a question last Thursday that had me stopped in my tracks. One of my students sent me a letter with a message at the bottom saying, Mommy was fired without no reason. What will happen to us? Mr. Speaker, that question resonated in my spirit because I recall as a teacher in between the period of 1997 and so when they had all that was going on in this country, a student that lived at Buxton came to me in the morning and said, Miss, my parents were killed. What would happen to me? That, Mr. Speaker, those two questions are the first time or the times that I would have experienced that as an educator, I could not answer my students. Mr. Speaker, therefore, when I saw the budget, I thought, I might be able to find some answers for our people. In the budget, according to paragraph 1.6 on page 2, there were some historical periods highlighted. Mr. Speaker, in the second phase of 1992 to 2015, all these flowery description adjectives were given, economic restoration and all of that. But Mr. Speaker, what was missing in this particular paragraph, it did not speak to the 400 unsolved murders and families that were reconstructed as a result of those atrocities. It did not speak to the economic genocide that were faced by African communities in this country. Mr. Speaker, am I to think now that this is now returned under this old time something come back again, PPPC regime? Because I'm faced with the exact same question I was faced with years ago, and it is very sad. Mr. Speaker, last September budget, we presented, a budget was presented and passed in this House as an emergency budget. However, I, like many Guyanese, Mr. Speaker, have witnessed the only emergency, sir, was the PPP cronies and their dreams. The distribution of the grant is a perfect example. How are the workers paid? The coordinator, the team leaders, and the team members on the ground. Were they paid from the same COVID relief money? It means, therefore, that many families will have to collect the pink slip because the money has got to go there. Mr. Speaker, it is important to highlight, Mr. Speaker, that I hope that the members on that opposite side of the House will take the necessary steps and make use of our banking system, of our NDCs, of our post offices to continue sharing the COVID relief grant. That way you will eliminate hiring a whole new set of people and continue to deprive families that are so much in need. Mr. Speaker, as I recall on my student question, I wonder, am I to tell my student that somewhere in this 50,000 jobs that are expected to be created in 5 years, the parents will find no work? That has affected the student and many other students. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, in the presentation when I listened to the Honorable Minister of Social Protection, I don't want to call names because I don't want to call wrong names. Mr. Speaker, I heard all the presentation where she spoke of supporting our children with $15,000 grant. Yes, that sounds wonderful. But if the parent was fired from the job, the $15,000 will not be able to serve the child's need because the family has a need. Supporting the elderly with $25,000. Oh, that is glorious, wonderful. I'm happy for my seniors. But if the seniors living with someone that was fired, the same $25,000 will now have to be used to feed the family. Mr. Speaker, supporting the vulnerable, we see parents who are laid off and have children with disability. It's not easy to deal with them. They collect the 13,000. Oh, wonderful, but then they have to study. They still have to feed the family. Mr. Speaker,
Honorable member, in order to conclude your presentation, you will need that 5 minutes extension.
Thank you. Comrade Speaker, I do move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude our presentation.
Honorable member.
thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is important that we recognize that according to the Convention of Human Rights, Article 25.1, it says everyone has the right to standard of living, adequate for health and well-being of himself and of his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and the necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood in circumstances beyond his or her control. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, it is hoped that these families or the fired workers, something will be put in place to ensure that they can recover and get themselves going again. Mr. Speaker, as a geographical representative for Region Number 4, in this budget, only 2.5% of the total budgeted sum was given to this region. Mr. Speaker, as I look at infrastructure, the only areas that will benefit from this budget is a culvert of Triumph, bridges of Cane Grove, Better Hope, and Morribo. What happens to projects for other communities like Friendship that got issues with the coca that continue to flood and affect people or the sea defense that is breached? What happens to suicide? 5 cocas, people continue to flood. These are projects that I would have expected to see in this budget presented. Mr. Speaker, I have a list of all that was presented by the NDC, projects that they would have had to submit and all of that, but it's sad to see. A lot of them, you cannot find it nowhere in the budget. Mr. Speaker, in the budget, the government announced that local governance will be strengthened through technical support to help NDCs perform their roles. I'm happy to see that, but however, Mr. Speaker, it is hoped that the NDC will not be forced to spend their subventions or non-functional lights and crush and run and other things to the community that the community does not necessarily need. It is hoped that the NDC voices will be heard. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I wish to turn my attention to the pitch for one thing. I love the pitch. It sounds great in speech and writing. However, oneness can never be realized when people's basic human rights continues to be violated by this regime. Oneness will be achieved when equality, fairness, and justice is guaranteed to all Guyanese. Mr. Speaker, I close with this quote from Senator John Kerry on the budget. This budget is like an N1 budget. Smoke the numbers, cook the books, hide the truth, and hope no one sign outside. Thank you.